School is supposed to be safe. But when a lockdown alarm blares and the world outside your classroom goes silent, every second can feel like a nightmare. Tonight, we're diving into 3 true school lockdown horror stories that prove how quickly normal can become terrifying. It was 7th period on a Thursday, the kind of day that drags forever because the weekend is so close, but still out of reach. I was in the music room for band practice, one of the few classes I actually enjoyed. Half the band was gone on a field trip, so only 6 of us were there with Mr. Foster, our teacher. The room felt bigger than usual with so many empty chairs and instruments scattered around. The faint smell of brass polish and sheet music ink mixed in the air. Mr. Foster was tuning his saxophone while we lazily plucked at strings or tapped valves. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like they always did, a steady background noise I never noticed until it stopped, because that's when it happened. The intercom crackled, and the principal's voice, usually calm and cheerful, broke through, sharp and clipped. "Attention staff and students, we are in lockdown. This is not a drill." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. For a moment, nobody moved. Even Mr. Foster just froze, his mouth open like he hadn't processed it yet. Then his expression shifted, calm on the outside, but his hands were trembling as he reached for the door. He locked it, flicked off the lights, and whispered for us to get to the far corner of the room. We huddled together behind the big bass drums, knees pulled up to our chests. The room was so dark now that I could barely make out the outlines of my classmates' faces. My breathing sounded deafening to me, and I tried to quiet it, but every inhale felt like a shout. For maybe 2 minutes, there was nothing. Just the heavy silence of dozens of instruments around us. Then we heard it. Footsteps in the hall. Slow, dragging, uneven. The kind of footsteps that weren't casual. They were deliberate. Each one echoed off the tiled floors and lockers outside. They stopped right outside our door. I could hear the faint rattle of the handle. Someone was testing it. We all held our breath. Even Mr. Foster looked like a statue. Silence. And then, bang. Something heavy slammed into the door. We all jumped, one of the freshmen letting out a muffled squeak that sounded way too loud. Another bang, harder this time. Then a voice, muffled, male, but close enough that we could hear every word through the thin wood. "Please, let me in. I need help." My stomach dropped. The voice didn't sound panicked. It didn't sound scared. It was too calm, too practiced. Nobody moved. Another bang. The voice grew louder. "They're chasing me. Please, I'm just a student. You have to let me in." One of the girls next to me started crying quietly, trying to cover her mouth, but the sound carried in the dark. That's when the tone of the voice changed. Deeper, harder, almost amused. "I know you're in there. I can hear you breathing." My lungs locked up, and all I could feel was my heartbeat hammering in my throat. The handle rattled again, then scraping. Something sharp dragged slowly down the metal edge of the door, squealing, grating like nails on a chalkboard, but deeper. The sound of a blade. No one dared move. It felt like hours, but it was probably only minutes before the sound stopped. The footsteps receded, fading into silence. We stayed in that corner until our legs went numb, waiting, every creak of the building making us flinch. Finally, the intercom crackled again. All clear. Teachers may resume classes. Mr. Foster didn't move for a solid 30 seconds. Then he finally unlocked the door. The hallway was empty. Too empty. But carved into the paint of our door, in jagged, uneven letters, were the words, "Next time." My knees almost gave out when I saw it. We never learned who that voice belonged to. No suspect was caught, no explanation given. Just that mark on the door, proof that whoever it was had been right there, waiting. And to this day, whenever I hear footsteps outside my door, I still hold my breath without realizing it. It was one of those afternoons where the air felt heavy, like the storm outside had crept into the building itself. Thunder rattled the roof, and every time lightning flashed through the high windows of the gym, the basketball court lit up like a stage. Coach had us running laps, sneakers squeaking against the varnished wood, while the rest of the class lounged on the bleachers. 60 kids in one space, loud and restless. I remember the scoreboard humming above us, stuck on 0-0, glowing red in the half-dark. Then the intercom crackled, and the principal's voice came on. No cheerful greeting, no morning announcement tone. Just tight, clipped words. Attention. We are in lockdown. This is not a drill. Teachers, secure your rooms immediately. The gym went dead silent. For a heartbeat, no one even moved. Then both coaches sprang into action, snapping at us to get on the bleachers. Lights out, no noise. Their whistles clattered uselessly around their necks as they ran to the doors and pulled them shut. I pressed into the second row of seats, my back against cold metal. My heart was hammering in my throat. You never think you'll be in a real lockdown. You think it's always just practice, until the voice on the PA doesn't sound like practice. The storm outside masked every small sound inside. The wind moaned through the vents, thunder rolled, and the silence in between was so sharp that even the squeak of someone shifting on the bleachers made us all jump. That's when the far door creaked open. A man stepped in. He wasn't a student. He wasn't a cop. He wore a reflective vest, a baseball cap, and carried a clipboard against his chest. For half a second, the disguise worked. He looked official. He looked like he belonged. He walked with this calm, steady confidence, like he'd been in gyms like ours 100 times before. The coaches froze, uncertain, but he gave a quick wave and said in this smooth voice, "Everyone stay calm. District safety check. Just need to take attendance." His voice didn't match his eyes. His eyes kept darting over the bleachers, like he was scanning, picking, choosing. Coach Martinez stepped forward. His voice was firm, commanding. "Students, stay put. Sir, you need to wait with me until this is cleared." The man smiled. Too long, too wide. He started walking down the aisle between the bleachers. I was close enough now to see the details that didn't fit. The badge hanging from his lanyard was just a piece of laminated paper. The vest smelled new, like it had just come out of the package. No dust, no wear. He stopped 2 steps below me, tilted his head, and pulled something from under the clipboard. It wasn't a pen. It was a syringe. The liquid inside was cloudy, trembling as his hand twitched. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He looked right at me, then at the freshman sitting 2 spots over. "You," he said softly. "Stand up. Need your name." The kid half rose, confusion on his face. The man flicked the cap off the syringe with his thumb. My stomach lurched. Coach Martinez yelled, lunging forward, but the storm outside cracked so loud it drowned his words. The man's free hand shot out, grabbing the freshman by the collar. The syringe hovered inches from his arm. I don't know what came over me. My hand closed on the basketball sitting at my feet. Without thinking, I shoved it down the row as hard as I could. It bounced off ankles, clattered into the aisle, and the sound broke the trance. Heads turned. Someone screamed. The boy twisted free. The syringe slipped, clattering across the wood, rolling into the dark beneath the bleachers. The gym erupted. Kids shoved past each other, screaming, sprinting across the floor. The sound was deafening, sneakers squealing, whistles blowing, voices cracking. The double doors slammed open, and in poured officers with guns drawn, their voices sharp and booming. "Hands! On the ground! Now!" The man spun, looking for an exit. His eyes flicked toward the maintenance corridor, the one without cameras. For a split second, we locked eyes. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't even angry. He looked curious, like he was studying me. Then the officers tackled him, his clipboard skittering across the floor. He hit the wood hard, cheek pressed to the varnish. And even then, with his arms pinned and a knee in his back, he turned his head toward me. And he smiled. "Attendance taken," he whispered. They dragged him out into the storm, his words still buzzing in my skull louder than the thunder. Later that night, when I grabbed my backpack from under the bleachers, I found something wedged into the strap, a torn sheet of paper covered in red marker circles, a map of our school, one circle around the gym, another around the exits, and one small circle, almost hidden, around my homeroom number. Next to it was a time, 7th. And that's when I realized he hadn't been improvising. He'd been following a plan that still had my name on it. I never liked the basement of our school. It smelled like damp concrete and old cleaning supplies, and the air was always heavy, like the place hadn't been opened in years. The ceilings were low, lined with buzzing pipes, and every sound seemed to echo too long. That day, I only ended up down there because detention overflowed. Too many kids had gotten into trouble, so the principal stuck 3 of us, me, Maya, and Armin, into an old classroom at the far end of the basement hallway. The room was cramped and smelled like wet cardboard. A single exit sign glowed faint red at the end of the curved hall outside. We'd barely started writing our essays when the intercom clicked. "Lockdown. This is not a drill. Teachers, secure your rooms immediately." The words froze me in place. Maya's pencil stopped mid-sentence. Armand cursed under his breath. We scrambled to the door, an old wooden one with a rusted bolt. I shoved it closed and slid the bolt into place. Then I killed the lights. The room fell into darkness, the only glow coming from that red exit sign bleeding into the hall. It painted the doorway like a wound. For a minute, there was silence. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure the others could hear it. Then, the power cut completely. The exit sign blinked and died. We were left in pitch black. That's when the speaker above the door came alive. Not the main intercom. This was a smaller one, the kind no one had used in years. It hissed. Then a voice slid through, low and ragged. "I see you." Maya gasped, her hands clutching her knees. Armin whispered, "What the hell was that?" His voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. I stared up at the grill in the ceiling. My stomach twisted. Whoever was talking wasn't a principal or a teacher or anyone I'd ever heard. The voice came again, closer now, almost like it was in the room with us. "Don't bother hiding. I know which room you're in." My throat went dry. I could barely swallow. The door handle rattled. Once, slowly, then again. The metal clink echoed like gunfire in the silence. Maya's breathing turned into sobs she was trying to choke down. Armin snapped. "Screw this." He shoved the bolt up, yanked the door open, and sprinted into the hallway. For a second, his white shirt flashed in the dark curve of the hall. His footsteps slapped against the concrete, fading fast. Then came a crash. Something metallic toppled, and then a muffled yelp, cut off too quickly. I froze, too scared to even breathe. The speaker hissed again. The voice was softer now, amused. One down. I wanted to vomit. I pressed my back against the wall, wishing I could disappear into it. Minutes crawled by. Then heavy boots pounded above us. Radios crackled. Shouts echoed down the stairwell. When the all clear finally came, it sounded fake, like a recording of safety, not the real thing. 2 officers led us out of the basement. That's when we saw the janitor's closet door hanging slightly open. Armin was inside, not sitting, standing stiff, wedged upright between shelves and a mop sink, like someone had shoved him there. His eyes were wide, his face pale. "He said to be still," Armin whispered hoarsely when they pulled him out. "Said if I breathed too loud, he'd start with my ribs." His lips trembled. He knew my name. I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing the way his body had been placed, like a doll left on a shelf. 2 days later, the vice principal asked me to come retrieve my essay from the basement room. I went with Maya. The hall was roped off with a "Do Not Enter" sign, but the door was propped open for us. The room felt wrong, emptier somehow, like it had been scrubbed but not cleaned. On the desk where my folder sat, someone had left a piece of paper under a clip. A wiring diagram, lines traced in pencil from basement OPA to a box labeled Jan Closet. My skin went cold. As we turned to leave, the old speaker above the door ticked once like cooling metal. And just before we stepped into the stairwell, faint under the tape they'd stuck across it, I swear I heard it. Good practice. I didn't run. I walked. 1 step at a time, up into the light, pretending the sound hadn't followed me. But every time my house goes quiet at night, when the fridge clicks off and the pipes settle, I hear that same tick in the walls, and I hold my breath, waiting for a voice that remembers my name.